Ecuador is on strike against the austerity measures imposed by President Lenin Moreno. A case of modern-day slavery is discovered in Trinidad and Tobago. And Turkey starts military operations in northeast Syria. Hello and welcome to Telesur. I'm Doris Polo in Quito, and this is From the South. A national strike is underway in Ecuador as protests continue for a seventh day against austerity measures imposed by President Lenin Moreno. Indigenous protesters who arrived from across the highland region have gathered at El Arbolito Park in central Quito, where they have faced police repression. On Tuesday night, the government imposed a curfew prohibiting people from being in the vicinity of government buildings and specific areas designated by the armed forces. According to authorities, nearly 700 people have been detained so far, and reports state at least 2 people have died.
In total, today we have treated around 350 injured, 10 of who came with severe injuries. Most of the patients we've treated came with cuts, burns, fractures, some exposed fractures even. We, as part of the Central University of Ecuador, are working here on the front lines to try and provide as much help as we can to the people.
On Tuesday afternoon, thousands of indigenous protesters took over Ecuador's National Assembly building. They had been trying to storm the building for several hours as part of their protest against President Lenin Moreno's austerity measures. Indigenous marchers from the Sierra region have been joined by students, trade unions, social movements, and ordinary citizens upset at the austerity plan. Let's hear from our correspondent Estefania Bravo, who is at the El Arbolito Park in Quito.
Hello, we are here in the Arbolito Park in the center north of Quito, and as you can see behind me, indigenous movements have come together to this point. They are protesting against the economic measures imposed by President Lenin Moreno. They are here striking against these measures, and today is the national strike, the indefinite national strike that will take place all over Ecuador, but specifically we are in the El Arbolito Park. And yeah, we see indigenous movements here that are protesting peacefully. They are not here to protest violently. They have come together, families, kids, children, mothers have come together. And what they're trying to do is peacefully protest against these economic measures. They are rejecting statements by police forces and by government officials that have said that they are acting violently, as you can tell. Women are here, men, also children were here yesterday, so they are acting in a peaceful way. Let's recall that the economic measures imposed by Lenin Moreno include the elimination of the gasoline subsidies that they say will affect them personally, their families, their work. So they have come together from all over the country and are here in Quito. We are 2 blocks away from the National Assembly and very close to the presidential palace. Let's also recall that President Lenin Moreno has moved his cabinet to Guayaquil, so he's currently not here in Quito, he's in Guayaquil, and we don't know when he will be coming back. So we will be here on the streets today in Quito to see how everything develops.
That was our correspondent Estefania Bravo at the El Arbolito Park in Quito with that report. Another 83 mainly indigenous protesters were arrested on Tuesday afternoon and taken to a military base, bringing the total number detained to around 700. David Cordero is part of a group of lawyers working to defend those arrested during the protests. He told Democracy Now! That they are all very worried about the latest detentions.
Because of the state of exception, the president is able to use the army to repress people in the streets. So we are very, very worried about that. We know that the international standards about human rights prohibit to use the army to repress people in the streets in these kind of manifestations. We demanded to the Constitutional Court to take to take a role in this and to revoke the order of President Moreno of the state of exception, and to demand him to respect human rights of the people in the streets. And the court sadly disappointed the people of Ecuador, and he said that the state of exception is constitutional. So right now we got 30 days in which the president will have full powers and the use of the full armed forces of Ecuador. We got several detainees. The president himself said yesterday that over 2,000 people all over the country are detained. We know for sure that yesterday night, 83 people were detained, indigenous people especially, in the protests in the streets, and they were not taken to the official place where they should be presented to a judge. That is the Unidad de Flagrancia, where they should be conducted. We suspect that they were taken to a military base in the north part of the city, but we don't have right now. We don't have official information about them. We are very worried about them. We presented an habeas corpus writ to the courts, and we are trying to know where they are.
David Cordero also described the impact of President Moreno's economic measures. He told Democracy Now! That they are similar to those defeated by the Ecuadorian people over a decade ago.
The problem is not recent, but right now President Moreno, of all the measures that he can choose to take, he's taking the recipe of the IMF. So basically, he's gonna decrease tax for the wealthies. He's gonna increase gas prices by eliminating subsidies, and that's gonna impact the most poor people in the society, especially because the fares of the bus fares will be increasing, and the whole chain of prices will be affected. And also the changes to the labor laws. And that is really worrisome, because he wants to dismantle the workers' protection that we have in the law for several decades. And in the past, maybe 20 years ago, when we were discussing the free trade zone of the Americas, indigenous peoples raised and protest against that initiative, and actually they were able to stop that. And now we got the same attempt to dismantle workers' protection, and there is a strong campaign against public officers right now. And some of the measures that Moreno is willing to introduce attack directly to those workers. They're trying to decrease the pay vacations to them. They're going to take one day of salary of the public services, and also the new people that will work for the state will work with less payment and with less stability in their work contracts. So we got all these measures that are going to impact the worker class in Ecuador.
Now, protesters have also gathered in Guayaquil during the city's Independence Day. Just like thousands more across the country, the protesters in Ecuador's financial hub are demanding that President Moreno repeal the recent rise in fuel prices. For his part, the president has repeatedly said that he will not back down, while blaming these protests on opposition figures and even the government of Venezuela, not on his own austerity measures.
It affects my own pocket because I have to fill my tank twice a week. Each tank full costs $15 more. That's $30 extra a week. Over the whole year, that's $1,500. That means the health and education of my family, our vacations, and then the civil servants over here who are having 50 days pay taken away. That means they are eliminating the end-of-year bonus salary. People aren't stupid, President Moreno. Please change course. Stop these measures.
Our correspondent, Carla Gonzalez, is in Guayaquil with the latest.
We are in Guayaquil, the main port city in the country, now head of the government. The headquarters have been moved to this city. Today we are at the Avenue 9 de Octubre, which is the main street in the city. We are seeing a large protest by workers which are joining the indigenous march that has also arrived to the city. Today they are demanding that the government of Lenin Moreno take back all the austerity measures that it has imposed on the country, including a price hike in gas prices, and also they are removing 15 days of vacation for people that work in the public sector. So we are expecting a large march today, also an anti-protest march by the opposition, by the right-wing opposition, which is headquartered in Guayaquil as well.
That was Carla Gonzalez reporting on the protests. During an interview on Tuesday, the Ecuadorian President Lenin Moreno praised the armed forces and the police. He also went on to reiterate his claim that his predecessor, Rafael Correa, is responsible for the anti-austerity protests and that the demonstrations are being orchestrated from Venezuela.
First of all, I want to congratulate the armed forces and the police who have known how to avoid causing damage and injuries to the women and children used as a human shield. I congratulate these acts. I congratulate the support from all the institutions, and I am grateful for the defense of our democratic system and the constitution we all have vowed to serve and protect. They're behind us. That's clear. I said it yesterday. If I remember correctly, Correa, Pavón, Patiño, and Hernandez were in Venezuela receiving orders to try and reach Latin America.
And the Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has responded to the accusations made by his Ecuadorian counterpart, while also offering a way to resolve the current situation gripping Ecuador.
The International Monetary Fund wants to impose its exclusive poverty-generating model in Latin America. Its oligarchic model that benefits capital, the multimillionaires, and leaves the people behind. That's why the people of Ecuador are in the streets, not because of Maduro. It's about survival. It's about resistance. It's rejection of the International Monetary Fund. That's why the people of Ecuador are on the streets. Yesterday I saw Lenin Moreno out of reality, totally out of place, surrounded by advisors who tell him, "No, you are a great president. You are doing it very well. Go ahead. You truly are a brave president. Brave to take away the benefits and social rights of people, brave to betray his people, brave to surrender to the International Monetary Fund." If Lenin Moreno wants to see reality, he must withdraw this economic package and speak with the people of Ecuador, hold a dialogue with the peasants, with the workers, with the indigenous communities.
We'll take a short break now. When we come back, Antigua and Barbuda has opted to pump $40 million into the cash-strapped Liat Airlines. We'll have details after this.
A review of the world news that investigates, incites analysis, and induces criticism, because every event has a context.
Pusimos el punto en la I.
Dotting the I. Saturdays, only on Telesur.
A case of modern-day slavery was unearthed in Trinidad and Tobago as the police service rescued 69 citizens who were imprisoned at a church in Aruca, East Trinidad. The 65 men and 4 women, some of whom were handcuffed, shared bunk beds in tiny cages and received meals through a small opening. The police commissioner said the rescued people were slaves as their relatives paid for their institutionalization. A total of 6 people have so far been arrested, including the pastor of the so-called Rehabilitation Center for Human Trafficking.
We have now cracked probably what is one of the biggest situations pertaining to human trafficking in this country. We have been liaising with the DPP. There have been 65 men and 4 women that we have found held against their will. They have been in prison, they've been in cages. Some of them have stated that they've been here for a few years. I have contacted the Minister of National Security, the Minister of Health. This is a much bigger picture, and we'll have to investigate each and every situation. 3 people have been held at this time, one being a pastor. He's being questioned. This is on Eastern Main Road in Aruca, and what we have seen is that this relates to virtual slavery, where persons have been in cages. We have reports from some of them that they have been tortured. It is a much bigger picture where there's profit made out of this, where it involves family members deliberately sending their loved ones here and then trying to extract the profit from the family.
Staying in Trinidad and Tobago, the country's former Chief Justice Sat Sharma has died aged 76. Sharma was recently diagnosed with cancer and passed away at his Marval home overnight. He was the country's 8th post-independence Chief Justice, serving from 2002 to 2008, and was succeeded by Ivor Archie. Sharma received 2 of the country's highest awards, the Trinity Cross in 2003 and the Shakonia Medal Gold in 1998, for his contribution to the development of law. In July 2006, he was cleared by an international tribunal of allegations of an attempt to pervert the course of justice. Antigua and Barbuda Prime Minister Gaston Brown says his country will invest $40 million in Liat, breaking a stalemate with Barbados over the purchase of the latter's shares in the cash-strapped airline. He made the comment during a radio program on Saturday.
I have indicated to her that the Antiguan and Barbudan government has $40 million that could be made available to recapitalize Liat, and that there should be a capital call, a fresh capital call, in which we will have the existing shareholders and possibly new shareholders recapitalize Liat. That will be followed with a restructuring of Liat to ensure that it becomes a little leaner and to ensure that it can at least turn an operating profit going forward. So, we obviously will have further discussions, but the idea that we will purchase Barbados' shares, that is no longer on the table. We've taken the decision, instead of buying Barbados' shares, that we will invest directly in Liat, subject to the approval of the other shareholder governments.
Álvaro Uribe made history on Tuesday, becoming the first former Colombian president to testify before a Supreme Court on allegations including procedural fraud, extortion, and witness tampering that could lead to criminal charges.
A historic event for Colombian justice as the Supreme Court presented its case against ex-president and Senator Álvaro Uribe Vélez. The former leader appeared before Colombia's highest court at 8 a.m. accompanied by his attorneys. He was received by a small group of sympathizers as well as many human rights organizations whose members held photos of victims killed by paramilitaries.
Colombians are celebrating and marking this day of justice. At the same time, we are commemorating our dead, the victims killed specifically during Uribe's tenure between 2002 and 2010. Social leaders, ex-combatants and victims are all present.
In 2012, Uribe sued left-leaning Senator Iván Cepeda, whom he accused of hatching a plot to falsely link him to paramilitary groups. But the court instead opened an investigation into him for procedural fraud, witness tampering, and extortion. Uribe, who is senator and the leader of current President Iván Duque's Democratic Center Party, had to answer about 100 questions as part of the investigation.
As a judge, I voiced my support for the Supreme Court in this brave act because despite all the murderers, Álvaro Uribe was summoned, even though he was not directly implicated for the massacres. This is the first step because, as a citizen, I have been waiting for this more than half of my life. Justice to be served to one of the biggest criminals in Colombia.
Human rights organizations, social collectives, victims' movements, and teachers' representatives assembled outside the court. They held posters accusing Uribe of mass murder, demanding justice and an explanation of his alleged link to paramilitaries.
We, the teachers' union, know that Uribe Vélez has a lot to do with the issue of violence in Colombia. In the last 20 years, teachers have been killed simply for educating children on history by showing them how drug trafficking unions work with Colombian politicians and the parapolitical movements that lead to Álvaro Uribe.
This hearing may be extended for several days. The court has a maximum of 10 days to decide whether it will indict Uribe, allowing him to attend court while being free, if the case is closed or if he will be sent to jail.
Police in Uganda have blocked off entry to Bobi Wine's home in the capital, Kampala, hours after banning him from performing at a concert. The musician-turned-politician tweeted photos of police vehicles surrounding his home, as well as spiked road barriers erected on the pathway leading to his house. He claimed police had also sealed off his lakeside property, One Love Beach, Busabala, the venue for the concert. On Tuesday, authorities announced that Bobi Wine's concert was cancelled because organizers had failed to heed minimum security standards. The Zimbabwean President Emmerson Mnangagwa is in Uganda to join celebrations for the country's 57th Independence Day celebrations. Mnangagwa was greeted by authorities upon his arrival at the Entebbe airport. He was then honored with a 21-gun salute before inspecting a guard of honor of the Uganda People's Defense Forces and the Ugandan police. Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni is hosting Mnangagwa at the State House in Entebbe, where the two leaders are also set to sign multiple bilateral agreements.
The Excellencies called for the immediate lifting of the long-standing economic sanctions imposed on Zimbabwe.
Currently, it is true Zimbabwe has survived up to date because we are focused on our own domestic resources. For the last 20 years, we have never received lines of credit. Whatever we have in Zimbabwe is on the basis of our own domestic resources, plus both political and material support from our sister countries on the continent.
We observe that there is a huge potential for cooperation between Uganda and Zimbabwe, especially in areas of agriculture, agro-processing, tourism, mining, health, trade and investment, education and air services.
Coming up, Iran has cautioned Turkey against military action in Syria. Don't touch that remote. 2 jets have taken off from the Diyarbakir Air Base in southeastern Turkey as Ankara started military operations in northeast Syria on Wednesday. Several large explosions rocked the Syrian town of Ras Al Ain on the border across from the Turkish town of Ceylan Pinar. As the blast occurred, Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan tweeted about the operation. He said, "Our Turkish armed forces have begun Operation Peace Spring together with Syrian National Army in northern Syria against PKK and Daesh terrorist organizations. Our mission is to prevent the creation of a terror corridor across our southern border and to bring peace to the area." Meanwhile, the Kurdish-led forces said it will not target Turkey but stands ready to face any kind of attack. A spokesman also called on the United Nations, European Union and democratic countries to oppose the Turkish incursion, saying failure to do so would be an endorsement of the move.
We send a message to the whole world again. We will not target a Turkish country, but if they insist in attacking us and occupying our lands, we will trigger our right in defending our projects until last blood. We're ready to face any kind of attack.
Earlier, the Iranian President Hassan Rouhani called on Turkey to show restraint and avoid military action in northern Syria.
When the leaders of Turkey, Russia and Iran met recently, we stated clearly that security on Syria's northern borders and Turkey's southern borders can be achieved through the presence of the Syrian army in the border areas. The United States must leave the area. The Kurds, whose country is Syria, should support the Syrian army and the Syrian government. The current trend to do deals behind closed doors is not to the benefit of the region. We urge our neighbour, friend and brotherly nation Turkey and the government of Turkey to show due care and attention and patience in this issue.
Students have staged protests in Bangladesh after an undergraduate was beaten to death by alleged ruling party activists. Abrar Fahad was reportedly killed for criticizing the government over a water-sharing deal with India. Students were heard chanting slogans demanding justice as they blocked major roads in 2 cities. The Dhaka Deputy Police Commissioner says the activists are in custody in connection with the murder. And with that, we've come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. For our viewers in Africa, remember you can find us on Starsa Channel 461 in South Africa and Channel 539 in Nigeria. And join us on social media. For Telesur English, I'm Doris Polo. Thank you for watching.